Hi, everybody. My name's Nicole Lamberson, and I work here at Medicating Normal doing outreach. And I have Morgan Stewart here with me today, and she is the founder of a new nonprofit called Antidepressant Coalition for Education, ACE for short, ACE. And this video is going to be me talking to her and interviewing her about ACE. And we'll spend a lot of time, later in the video getting into the details of the organization and why she founded it, etc. But first, for those of you who just have a short few minutes, we kind of just want to jump right in here at the beginning of this recording so that you can perform two action items essentially. ACE has done two things. Well, they're having two initiatives going first. So the first one is they have filed a petition to the FDA about antidepressant harms. And that petition is now live, and anyone can comment on it. Anyone in the public, you don't have to have been injured by antidepressants to leave a comment. So everyone out there who's been injured by anything, benzos, ECT, antipsychotics, you should care about this because it's another life harmed by a medication, maybe not the one that you took, but one that's harming people. And we know that it is. So we should get behind this and support by leaving a comment on that petition. And I think it just looks well supported if thousands of us come out, and leave comments on it. Um, Before we were recording, Morgan was telling me that, well, you can say, Morgan, I guess supported comments are, more, they put more weight on them, right?
Right. Yeah. So if you can include research or citations, that's great. Well-supported comments do carry more weight, but we absolutely encourage personal impact stories as well in the form of a comment. So we're just grateful to get any support and as many comments as we can, for sure.
Okay. So literally, your mom can leave a comment, even if she never took a medication, like
My mom did.
anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone can do it. So ask your friends, use your social media to get people to comment in support of this. Right now, there's 80 something comments, and it's just unacceptable. I mean, the numbers of us that are out here that can get people to comment on this, we should have thousands of comments. And so that's the first action item we're asking of you guys. And we're going to link to the petition where you can leave your comment below so that you can go there and do that. Action item number 2 is ACE as an organization is asking people to, if you were harmed by antidepressants, go to the FDA's MedWatch program and report your injury to the FDA. This is the same drive that BIC, where I'm now medical director, Benzo Info Coalition, we did the same thing years ago and asked people to go and report their injury, and it worked. We filed a Freedom of Information request, and our organization's name was listed in the document. And the FDA said, oh, suddenly we got a surge of reports, and we had to look into what was happening. And ultimately, benzodiazepines got a black box warning. The FDA put $2 million towards deprescribing guidance. So now there's adequate warnings on the labels for benzos about protracted withdrawal, about physical dependence. And that's exactly what Morgan's hoping to accomplish with antidepressants as well. And so we need everyone who was harmed by antidepressants to go over to the FDA's MedWatch program and file a report. I could be wrong about the number, but I think the last time I looked, there was like only 1% of people reporting their injury from medication or harm to the FDA. And I don't know, have you seen stats other than that, Morgan?
I feel like I did read a stat not too long ago, and I cannot remember the number, but it's very low. I mean,
Yeah.
most people harmed by medications are not reporting it to the FDA's MedWatch program.
Yeah. And this is what the FDA is using to, determine if agents that are out there are safe for
Exactly.
humans to take them. So if we're not reporting, they have nothing to go by. They just assume, oh, everything's going well with that, if nobody's saying anything. And
Right.
so this is our chance to let them know, if we've been injured, to report in mass, and then they get a big influx of harm, and they have to look into it when that happens, and they
Right.
will. There's been some comments, I guess, Morgan has seen on some of the videos of people saying, well, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to, so there's no point in reporting. But that's not true. We've seen them do something with benzodiazepines. And so I think, if we report here and you get enough people, then something could possibly be done. This is not, a waste of time,
Right.
essentially. So,
No, no, it's not.
yeah,
Yeah.
2 action items. We got them right up front in this video for you. So
Yes.
if you could please go do those things if they're relevant to you. And also, I think ACE is offering to help people if they need help.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You can email us at ace@antidepressantinfo.org. We have volunteers that are very eager to help. I'm eager to help. We're all eager to help. If someone's experiencing, pretty severe cognitive impairment due to withdrawal, or they just don't have the capacity, they're too sick, we just need a few details because we don't want, obviously anything to be fraudulent. We aren't going to fabricate anything. So we'll need some information from you, but we're more than happy to help you submit your report.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You don't have to submit the report yourself. Volunteer can help you do it at
Yep.
ACE. Your parents could do it, your brother, your sister, even your physician can fill it out for you.
Right.
So if you're unable and you can find someone else, it's perfectly acceptable to have somebody doing it for you.
Right.
So,
And I don't know if I can't remember if you said this already, Nicole, but anyone in the world can submit both a comment and submit a MedWatch report. So the FDA is not concerned whether you live in the US or not, or you're a US citizen. Their only concern is if the medication that harmed you is on the market in the US. So I know we've had some comments, quite a few people asking, I'm in the UK, I'm in Australia, wherever, if they could submit. Yes, you're able to submit comments. If you're not, some people said, I don't live in the US, I couldn't submit it. That was most likely like some kind of technical error, because legally you can submit a comment and you can submit a report whether or not you live in the US.
yeah. And once the FDA acts on something, other countries kind of take notice. And so
Right.
it means that it could be the catalyst for, change in other countries as well. Although,
Exactly.
if you really want to be super advocate, you can, or activist, sorry, you can report in your own country too.
Yep.
There's overseeing bodies for every country. And we'll link to that too if you really want to report in your own country. But this specific drive that we're doing with ACE here is just for the FDA. So we're really asking everybody to be, all hands on deck and to do this. So those are the 2 action items. We're going to link everything for you so you can just go there and do it. And you can not watch the rest of this video if you don't have time, but we hope, people will stick around and want to hear more about Morgan and ACE and the organization. So we're going to transition now into that part of the talk. So,
Thank you, Nicole.
yeah. So everybody, like I said, this is Morgan, and she founded Antidepressant Coalition for Education, which I'm so happy that you've done, because even with all the media that we have at Benzo Info Coalition, they would say, oh, some of the journalists we would talk to, well, we know, we're hearing that antidepressants are a problem. Like, what organization can we contact for that? And we're like, well, there isn't one, there wasn't one until you formed one. So I'm so glad that you have done that. And I guess, do you want to tell everybody kind of why you founded the organization?
Yeah, so that was a part of it. Nicole, I know I had brought that up to you. Um, there is a really great piece done, published by the Wall Street Journal. I was talking with one of the reporters and they asked me, is there an organization like BIC for antidepressants? And I had to tell her no. So really there was missed opportunities happening with us not having an organization. And I just saw all of the advocacy work that BIC was doing, and there was tangible results like the 2020 boxed warning for benzos. And so yeah, I thought, there's no reason we shouldn't, we don't have or there shouldn't be a reason we don't have an organization for antidepressants. So I created one,
Yeah.
Of course, after I was injured by one. I feel like that's an important, probably,
Yeah.
assumed, but
Yeah, most people probably would assume that, this is a lot of work. And so somebody who hasn't been through this or hasn't loved somebody who's been through this is probably not going to do it. So, yeah, do you want
right.
to tell people? I mean, obviously, I hate that question when people are like, "Tell your story." I'm like, "Oh my God, where do I begin?"
Right.
It's usually really long and convoluted, but maybe the
Yeah.
sort of brief version for people so they know kind of what happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I was prescribed fluoxetine or Prozac when I was 26 for situational depression when a family member got really sick, and we were all very sad in my family.
Mhm.
9 years passed and no prescriber asked me if I if the situation had changed, basically. So I stayed on it. I was switched to sertraline or Zoloft for the last 2 years of those 9 years. Um, and then per my doctor's guidance, tapered off very quickly. He actually told me to half it 1 week and then half it the next and be done. But he did tell me I was on the lowest therapeutic dose, so I didn't even actually have to do that, but
Mhm.
just to be safe. Um, I intuitively thought, you know, I had been on this medication for so long. Um, I I just thought it was kind of fast, so I stretched it out to a month, I think,
Mhm.
maybe a little longer. And I thought, you know, that's good enough. I halved it for 2 weeks, halved it again for 2 weeks, and then I was done. Um, I had what some people in the community call late onset withdrawal or delayed withdrawal. Um, but I was in withdrawal from the moment I think I halved my 50 milligrams of Zoloft. I just didn't recognize them as withdrawal symptoms, and my doctor didn't either. So I was pretty certain, like many of us, that I had MS or ALS because I recognized something neurological was happening with me.
Mhm.
Um, and then acute happened, 2 to 3 months off. And it was the most, again, like for many of us, the most traumatic event of my life. Um, Much worse than the situational depression I was put on it for. Um, I developed akathisia. I paced. Um, I had awful, awful symptoms, violent, intrusive thoughts that, were looping, and just a lot of, symptoms that were incredibly jarring that I had never experienced before the medication or while on the medication. Um, I was gaslit by many, prescribers. I don't know that I was intentionally gaslit, but I was told this was the return of my depression, which was ridiculous. And I eventually admitted myself to a psychiatric hospital, um, where I was put on 2 more medications, benzodiazepine and Buspar, which, Nicole, you have been so helpful in me tapering them. Um, I was pretty, I was functionally impaired to begin with. I had to take an extended leave from work. I was very fortunate in my situation, that I had a great employer that let me take months off of work. I have a very supportive spouse, and his parents live close by, so I was able to, I kind of refused to be alone with my kids for a while there. So his parents helped out. And yeah, so I gradually got better. You know, I know I consider myself a severe case, but I think even in that kind of category of severe, it's a spectrum. So, you know, I wasn't housebound or bedbound, but I definitely was couchbound for a while. And, you know, it was just, it was awful. It was awful. It was a financial strain. I had to take a second mortgage out on my house because I didn't work. You know,
Wow.
it affected my marriage. It affected my children. But the good news is I slowly got better. And I eventually safely, again, with Nicole's help, stepped off of the benzo. And I'm about 2/3 off of the boost bar, which I know some people consider a benign drug, but I'm here to tell you there's no benign drug in psychiatry. I saw a lot of healing between year 2 and 3. So I'm about 3 years out now. I took, you know, an extended 8-month-long road trip around the country with my family. I probably wasn't entirely, my nervous system wasn't entirely ready to do that, but I did that anyway. But when I got back, or around the time I think I was headed back, is when I decided to create ACE. And there was just a lot of thinking before that moment about creating something, but I don't think I was well enough until then. So, so yeah, that's my story, I guess, in a nutshell.
Yeah. I think, you know, a lot of people don't realize these organizations are just, you know, sick people, you know,
Right.
working, volunteering. Like nobody at BIC is paid, you know, you guys are brand new. You probably have $0 in the bank.
0. Yeah.
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 Which, you know, once the bank account is up and running, that's another way you can support ACE is by making a donation. What is the timeline on your bank account?
Well, we're dealing with the IRS, so they're not known for their promptness, but I filed, I don't know when this will be out, but it's May 31st. I filed it, I think, in the beginning of May. And so it can be, as you know, as little as 3 weeks, but it can also be months to get that nonprofit status, the 501c3
Yeah.
status. So we're still waiting on that.
Okay. So we'll, you know, ACE will announce, Medicating Normal will announce when they have a bank account and you guys can get behind, you know, making a donation, however big or small, because, you know, these organizations aren't free. It costs money to have a website and to do activism. So, yeah, we will post that when it's available for you to support them in that way. So why did you call it ACE? I mean, I love that it's like a catchy, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of the reason. But I had, you know, again, I had studied Vic, right, from afar. For anyone that knows me, I'm kind of a quiet observer. So this is very much out of my element. Um, but I liked that you could just call the Benzo Info Coalition Vic. And so that's kind of shallow, but that's the reason I didn't want to have
No.
to say, you know, or repeat, you know, Antidepressant Coalition, you know,
Yeah.
for
I mean, I
education
think
or
that's smart marketing, you know. That's kind of what they tell you to do when you're coming up with something, like make it catchy, make it have a good short, you know, abbreviation for it. So I like it. Yeah. I mean, I consider ACE essentially like a sister organization to BIC, you know, that's
100%. That means
yeah.
so much to me
Yeah.
coming from the medical director. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said in the beginning, it's a much needed thing. And somebody I saw commented on social media recently, like, all the drugs are bad. And it's like, okay, you have a
Right.
point, you know?
Right.
Um, even though I don't like to say the drugs are bad, that's not a statement that I would ever make. But I think what the person was trying to say is you can be harmed by any psychiatric
Sure.
medication, correct? But it'd be a lot harder to get anything done if you had just a organization for all harms from psychotropic medications or psychiatric
Right.
interventions, because there's just too many,
Right.
so you have to focus and do these specific initiatives. And that's why BIC is just BIC. It's just benzos and Z drugs, and ACE is just antidepressants. So if somebody wants to do an antipsychotic organization, like,
Yeah.
go for it.
I would love it. We can then
Yeah.
have like this trio alliance, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's why the focus, because you have to, when you're doing initiatives like this, it has to
Right.
be very specific what you're asking for and what you're
Right.
focusing on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and then, so we talked about the FDA Citizens Petition. Um, and for people who are just leaving a comment, that's enough. But if somebody doesn't have time or they don't have the brain power to go read the whole petition, can you kind of give like a bullet point summary of what's in there? What does it say? What are you asking the FDA to do,
For
essentially?
sure. Um, we're asking the FDA to update all the prescribing information to warn patients and prescribers of the risk of severe protracted antidepressant withdrawal,
Mhm.
because we know not everyone experiences a severe protracted withdrawal. So but people should know. We're asking for that to also be a boxed warning, because I think that it is extreme enough to warrant a boxed warning. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. Um, we're asking for discontinuation syndrome, wherever that is stated in the prescribing information, to be replaced with withdrawal, because that is a more accurate depiction of what happens to someone like me, or what has happened to someone like me.
Mhm.
And we're asking for guidance for how to safely, to add guidance to safely taper people off of antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I
Just like
should,
they've just done with benzos, it's
exactly,
common sense. And I was on the patient panel for that, and they kept, when they're writing the guidance, they kept saying things like, you can prescribe them antidepressants, which are safer. And I was like so annoyed with that. I was the one, constantly writing back saying, like, before we know it, there's going to be you know, patient panel for coming up with deprescribing guidance for antidepressants. It's
right,
literally the same problem. So
right,
now you're just pushing them in the direction of creating a new problem that's the same as the one that they just
exactly.
had. It's insanity. Like,
It's
yeah.
interesting, I think, and you could probably speak more to this, Nicole, because you've, it's kind of your expertise, and you've dealt with a lot of, taper plans for a lot of different people, etc. And you've just been in this community much longer. But I've seen a lot of the hot potato with, like, so I was put on, and I had more than one person tell me, get on a benzo, and that's exactly what ultimately what became my psychiatrist told me as well, or prescribed me, was a benzo. And a lot of folks that are like benzo injured will get put on antidepressants. So it's like, we are creating more problems for ourselves. Not, and I'm not judging anyone. I get, for me, when I was prescribed more medications, I wasn't entirely, knowledgeable on the community and withdrawal. And, I was still kind of, I think, very confused in this crisis, acute phase of my withdrawal. And I did so I'm not casting judgment about that, but there is a lot of hot potato with people going back and forth. So antidepressant injured folks are getting on benzos, and benzo injured folks are getting on antidepressants.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just, I mean, in my comment on the FDA petition, I included a study which Dr. Peter Gocha, some of you will know him. I love him. I love his work. But he did a study looking at comparing essentially antidepressant withdrawal symptoms and benzodiazepine withdrawal symptoms, and found the syndromes between the two near identical, except for like 4 or 5 symptoms. So they're the same, you know.
Right. I used that study in the petition. So again, Vic's work just once more is kind of supporting our work, the groundwork that you all have laid for us. But because, benzo withdrawal and antidepressant withdrawal can be nearly identical.
Yeah.
I was able to kind of use that study, and also the fact that benzos now have a boxed warning for severe protracted withdrawal, to say, well, benzos got it, and the research says that antidepressants can be just as bad. So that's pretty good logic to me, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's perfect timing. You are literally right on the heels of them releasing the benzo deprescribing guidance. So it's like, well, we're next in line. Like, they're not going to like it, but, it's just reality. And so we have to make this, we have to, put effort behind this initiative because it's really, really important. Way back actually before I even got sick, they did a citizens petition for benzodiazepines. That was the first effort. So it's literally like we're kind of, repeating history here. If I remember correctly, they took 5 years to respond to the benzodiazepine petition, and it didn't get anywhere. But what did work was the MedWatch reporting program. So not to say that it's not important to leave comments on the petition. It is, both of them are very important, but the MedWatch reporting is super.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really important point to bring up, Nicole. That less than 13% of citizen petitions, according to some studies, are denied. So without the reporting drive, it's likely that the petition will be denied. And to be honest, I would be happy even with just a partial grant, because they do that sometimes where they'll partially grant, some items, some of the requested items. But and I did see that with Vic. There was I think it was in 2013, Vic had submitted a petition, a citizen petition. And it was very thorough. It had, pages and pages from all the people, we know, Heather Ashton. And I think there was even some stuff from Baylisa on there. And yeah, it was denied. And so it took the reporting drive to get them. I think and correct me if I'm wrong, they circled back to that petition. Is that right? Or is it Vic, offered them the suggestions again?
Yeah, they investigated after the first MedWatch reporting drive, and they said oh, we're not going to do anything. And then they came back and investigated again, like a year or 2 years later, because we just kept reporting. I mean, the MedWatch drive went on and on. Like, we never stopped doing it, essentially. So, I think that's going to be important for ACE, is just to keep pushing it, like, for as long as you're in existence and you're needed. And until they act, we'll just keep telling people, hey, because new people show up all the time. And so, but I think I remember that FDA petition for benzodiazepines. It still lives somewhere, like in the archives, and there were hundreds, thousands, I think, comments on that petition. So, we need to copy that with this one.
Right. Yeah. We're doing things a little differently we're doing them simultaneously, the reporting drive with the petition. And my hope is we catch, because they have 6 months to respond, The response doesn't have to be that they tell us it's granted or denied. It can be, we need more time. But my hope is to kind of get them to pay attention to antidepressant withdrawal harm by the time they have to make a response to us. So it's a little different than BIC, but I'm hoping it'll work.
Yeah, definitely. And okay, so they have 6 months to respond. So this like 6 month period is really important then for leaving comments on the petition and also filling out your MedWatch reports if you're someone who's injured.
Yeah.
Um,
We
and
do
then
plan on keeping that drive open longer than 6 months, but I do think this is going to be a crucial 6 months from May 10th until November is when we're really trying to get that,
big
that surge in reports.
push.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And then did I cut you off? Were you done telling us what the petition says?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I do want to specify. So, the petition is exclusively for SSRIs and SNRIs and for withdrawal. And so I just want to make it clear that I acknowledge the harm of all psychiatric medications and I acknowledge the harm of all antidepressant classes. And you kind of touched on this already, Nicole, but this is a strategic focus. And this is kind of something distinctly different from BIC. BIC is, there's Z drugs, but it's mostly one class of medication, benzodiazepines. Antidepressants are many different classes of medications. And so submitting a petition that includes all the classes of medications it just wouldn't work. So this is a strategic focus. I also know there's many other harms, PSSD. A lot of folks develop akathisia starting antidepressants, especially really activating ones like SSRIs. Those are really important things that I would love for ACE to address down the road. But for now, this is what we're focusing on is SSRI and SNRI withdrawal. And that is intentional, and that's not to leave all of those other important things out. It's just one thing at a time. And this is, again, a strategic focus, making it, I think, much more likely to be taken seriously.
Yeah. And once you, do that, then you can move on to, tackling the rest, or people can join ACE, if you have a specific axe to grind, or something that you really want, if you're a PSSD survivor or, mirtazapine or, something that falls outside of what you're focusing on now. Are you guys at ACE like looking to accept volunteers to sort of do
I
the
would love
other?
it.
Yeah.
I would love it. Especially if, I was injured by an SSRI, and I think that's what I know best. So I would love it if we could get volunteers that have been injured by other classes of drugs. I mean, volunteers in general are great. But for initiatives involving, other classes of drugs, it would be great to have someone with lived experience with that class of medication kind of help lead that initiative. So.
Yeah, because most people who are injured by whatever it was they were injured by, they typically focus all of their energy and research into that one specific
Right.
thing. So you tend to be more of an expert on,
Mm-hmm.
The thing that hurt you the most.
100%.
Yeah. So you are accepting volunteers at the current moment, and people can just like email you to become a volunteer or to join.
Yeah.
There's medical folks out there watching who want to join the medical advisory board. What kinds of volunteers or people who are going to sit on ACE's board are you currently accepting, and how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So if you are a medical professional and you're interested in joining the medical advisory board, which we are still forming, I would love to chat with you. Same for the general advisory board, and just volunteers in general. If you want to, I know I have a few wonderful volunteers right now. Shout out to Christina. She's doing a really great job with rounding up, just, kind of encouraging people to submit their reports. And so the whole team is great. Everyone's really putting in a lot of effort, but you can contact us at ace@antidepressantinfo.org, message us on our website, or DM us on, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If you use one of those platforms, more than the others, you can like and follow our stuff and DM us on there as well. But yeah, volunteers of all sorts, social media manager and website manager. I would definitely love to delegate those things if anyone's interested.
Yeah, it's all a lot of work. I don't think until you've been involved in a nonprofit like this doing, activism, do you realize like, oh my God. I mean,
Yeah,
just answering the emails, can be a full-time job, and then social media, and, it all takes time, it all takes effort, it all takes money. So,
100%. I think I've mentioned this to you already, Nicole, but pretty much, and this isn't a complaint because I am very passionate about this, very passionate. But pretty much nearly all of my spare time right now, and I work a full-time job, although it is fully remote, so that's very nice. But a full-time job, I'm married with kids, but nearly every spare moment is dedicated to ACE right now. I just think it's that important, and yeah.
Yeah. And it's Saturday night, guys, we're sitting here on our Saturday night recording this. That's how much we care about this,
Yeah.
and, Morgan won't tell you this, but she's nervous being on camera. And we were talking
Very.
before recording this. Like, before I was as healed as I am now, I used to do this work and I would sweat like a pig. And everyone would say, "Oh, you do such a good job," and they just had no idea how difficult and hard it was. But I cared so much about change, and I just like I had such a fire lit underneath me that it was so wrong that this was happening to people, and they didn't get informed consent that they deserved. And so, I want to light that fire under other people. And that doesn't mean you don't have to join, you don't have to volunteer, you don't have to give money if you don't have it. But something like just leaving a comment on the petition or filling out the FDA MedWatch program. It's like one thing that doesn't take that much time. And once you're done with it, you can say, all right, I've done my part, and
Right.
it could affect change in a major, major way. So,
Right. I mean, yeah, that was really moving, Nicole. It was like, oh, it's going to make me tear up a little bit because I think that's incredible when people have that much passion I mean, really what we're doing is we're preventing others from being, harmed in like the very, severe way that we are harmed. And I think that there's just something so, yeah, selfless and noble about that. And I feel very much the same. And yeah, I'm not saying, come manage all of, the social media or whatever, I also understand this is the demographic that we're dealing with are very, a lot of folks are really sick and injured. And I obviously empathize greatly with that. But even if you can, if you're able to, comment on a post or whatever, make that comment, can you help me? I'm not trying to tell you what to do because I know I'm not, um, not entitled to anyone's time, but I guess I'm making the point it would take as much, energy to just ask for us to help you submit a report. And you would literally, I know Yosef said this in his video, and I think it's really true. If, by contributing, by submitting a report or a comment, you're going to help make history. This would be really huge. It would be huge for people that have been, patients that haven't been harmed yet. But it also will be huge for us that are already harmed. It'll be a public acknowledgement. It might give us stronger, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say for sure, but may give us stronger legal grounds if there's something like this in the prescribing information and then we're negligently tapered off. A lot of things. This could open the door to a lot of things. I think it would be groundbreaking. So,
Yeah. And if you're disbelieved by your doctor, now benzo folks have something to point to. They can be like, well, that's not what this says. And so if you get the stuff updated for antidepressants as well, there's something for injured patients to point to and get belief and validation from people who are already injured sometimes say, well, it's not going to do anything for me. So,
right.
but it's not true. If you're injured and you're struggling to find acknowledgement or a doctor that believes you, yeah, it's not going to
100%.
reverse your injury.
Right.
That's done. But we should care about what happens to people going forward, even if we were already harmed and there's no help for us, at this point.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're going to link everything that you guys need below this video. The FDA petition where you go to comment, where you can go to report your MedWatch program. Morgan just mentioned Dr. Yosef did a video as well. That's a really good one. And he goes over actually kind of like a mock filling out of the MedWatch form, which was really good. So we'll link Yosef's video below too if you want to watch it and like get ideas for how to submit. But don't overcomplicate it. Just if you can't do it yourself and it feels overwhelming, just email ACE and they will help you. They'll hold your hand and get it done. So, um,
100%.
yeah. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap?
I don't think so. Yeah, just again, reach out to ACE, whatever way you'd like, and we are more than happy to help. And let's make history together.
Yeah. Amen. So we're also going to link all of ACE's social media and website. So if you want to follow them on socials and like keep an eye on what they're doing and when their bank account comes up and all of that, you can do that too. So, well, I'm so excited to see, what ACE does and, watch history be made alongside of you. And if we can help, in any way, let us know. And just thank you for, devoting your time and energy to something really, really important that's going to change the world. And like, it's not dramatic to say, like, save people's lives?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me on here, and thank you for being such a supporter before, any of this came into fruition. You've been, I think, our number one supporter. So thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to do it. And I just, I want it to succeed. I know that it can do good things and it's going to if we can just get the power in numbers behind it. So, yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Again, everything you need is going to be in the description box, and go now and leave your comments and report your harm to the FDA. So, okay. Take care.
Thank you.